Hello, everybody. How are we all doing? I'm realizing how dark this room now looks. Let's let's try and get some more light in here. Hi, everybody. I hope you're all doing really well. I'm gonna in the background just get some more light because the preview screen for live stream stuff is really interesting because it looks like it kind of intentionally dims things. So you're like everything will be much brighter, and then it's not. I apparently also seemingly live in a basement. How is everybody doing? Hi. Thanks for, there we go. That's slightly better. So I now look like this sort of looks like I'm in some kind of bunker, realizing just because of the light here. So here we are. We're at the end part of the International Booker Prize for 2024. We have had a shortlist. We're about to find out the winner in about 15 minutes or so. And it's all very strange to sort of realize that it's all going to come round again. The International Booker is kind of a surreal one, I find, partly for the fact that you get kind of acknowledgement of, you get the long list, and then within sort of what feels like a couple of weeks is the shortlist, and then it's the winner, and it's all quite a quick turnaround. So I've still got one book left from the long list, Silver Bone by Andrei Kirkov, to read. But I've read the shortlist, and so I'm excited to see what all comes from today. But yeah, thank you for joining me online, people. We shall see. I'm excited to see what we have in terms of a winner. And where that all goes. But really, like with all book prizes, there's no real rhyme or reason a lot of the time to everything. Hi, Leah. And yeah, I'm also doing the same. I have my phone set up with the official live stream just so I can catch the actual winner. But yeah, there's often not really much of a rhyme or reason to the winner, in the sense that this is a fool's game to try and predict things. I think very rarely have I actually ever been right in this. Maybe the problem is me. I'm terrible at prediction rather than it actually being something that's nearly impossible to predict. But I suppose for the most part, you are dealing with 5 people in a room, trying to make a prediction about something, and that doesn't always work, right? It's trying to make a decision about who they want to win, and so for us trying to predict, we have to kind of get inside the minds of 5 people who have picked a long list and a short list from a set range of books that were submitted. So I think that's kind of where it all comes in. But I've got 2 of them physically here with me today, which are actually 2 books I'd be very happy with. Sorry, it's slightly inverted in my camera, so I keep on getting really confused about where things are. But we have had, this shortlist. I'm intrigued to see what comes from this. I'd also love to hear in the chat from people about who you are rooting for. I have sort of gone through quite a mixed set of feelings around it. I think probably my personal favorites and the ones that I think maybe have the strongest chance are kind of actually fairly similar. I think, I think as kind of a few people as somebody's just said in the chat, Mark has just said, Kairos, I think, has a really good shout. It's also the kind of book that I think stands up well to multiple readings. I say this, I read it once. But I think it's a really intelligent book. And yeah, Not a River, which a few people are mentioning in the comments already, which is great. I think this is a really deceptively good book. It's very short, and I think so, like, as a result, it kind of feels like it's over before it starts. But it has sort of lingered with me, the way this book really looks at this sort of gritty, kind of the ways that these characters are sort of trapped in, not only in their world, but kind of trapped by legacy and by myth and sort of generational curses, almost in the same way that actually Crooked Plough, somebody else has just mentioned in the comments there, I think has a really good shot of winning. I think it does that same thing very, very well indeed. So those are probably my three books that I really love, that I think would be like stunning winners. the Gente Postuma book, I think, is really good as well. It kind of slipped in there for me, where I don't think I was expecting to really love it as much as I did, but the little vignettes I thought were very, very clever. I suppose Marta 210 is maybe the only that was it 210. I'm never actually quite sure. But Marta 210, I mostly enjoyed. I think I just found it a little. I kind of occasionally it dipped into being more of a non-fiction book for me at times, which isn't the worst thing, but didn't necessarily always appeal to me. And that just leaves the details, which I thought was also really interesting in quite a few ways. I realize it sounds like I'm just being intentionally really positive about all these books, but I do think it's a relatively strong shortlist. And yeah, TK Talks books. Thank you. Marta 210 is the only one where I was like, I could see the value in this book. I see why it's really important. And, you know, look, I sort of mentioned in my wrap-up video about it all, I lived in South Korea, and I know some of the places being mentioned in the book, and I know how important that history is to parts of, to some of those cities, particularly. So Gwangju, a city that gets mentioned, is sort of such a hotbed of sort of political activism because of just the ways that particularly workers and students were kind of treated. And so I think it's a really solid book in many ways. But yeah, like it's just sort of been said in the comments as well, I think occasionally it just felt a bit, I was like, okay, I kind of want to come back to the human stories here, whereas I feel like we're getting a little bit, there's a bit more of a non-fiction focus that isn't the worst. Like, you know, non-fiction's great. I love a good non-fiction book. There were moments where it started to feel a little bit for me like I was, yeah, it kind of, I kind of just want more of a story here. I want it to do some interesting novelistic things, I guess. So yeah, an interesting one, particularly reading the rest of the long list, apart from Silverbone, because I've been sort of finding that it's been a very weird set of 13 books, and the International Booker, I think, particularly throws out some curveballs. But the International Booker long list this year, I found really so kind of hit and miss at times, where I just sort of, I didn't quite know what I was reading. And some of the books, a lot of autofiction, a lot more maybe than previous years. Not necessarily a bad thing, but yeah, there you go. Hi, Rudy. We've not found out the winner yet. We're due to find out in approximately 7 minutes. So we will find out very soon. Undiscovered being the one where, yeah, it was very autofiction-y. And look, I don't always mind that. Lost on Me, I think, actually does the autofiction side of things a bit better, by Veronica Raimo. Something about Undiscovered, I was like really rooting for it in the first 40 pages or so, and then later in the rest of the book was like, I kind of, even though it's a short book, I kind of just want you to get to the point. This book could have been an essay, but yeah, there we go. Yeah, in terms of who I think will win, I'm really torn because I have kind of 3 or 4 that I really like, and I realize that's most of the 6. 3 or 4 that I really like that I think have strong chances. But I do think, I'm not a gambling man, I do think it is between Kairos and Crooked Plough, with Not a River as a potential kind of dark horse. And as well, interestingly, so Charco Press, who published this, also recently won the Republic of Consciousness Prize, with a book that I will now entirely forget the name of. And what I thought was really interesting about that is that was a short book winning a prize, and a short book that is very, in many ways, does a lot of similar things to Not a River. It's very sort of brutal, forceful, kind of intelligent, really sort of Cattle and Men. Thank you so much. It's so focused and so brutal and kind of creative. And I was really glad to see a book like that win a prize. I kind of think Not a River does that really intelligently. It was the first I read, actually, of the long list. And I think it's got, I don't know, I think it's got a good chance. I feel like it's a good outside one. I kind of feel like, I mean, maybe this is this is sort of famous last words here. I would be very surprised if it's the details. I think it's a good book. I enjoyed it. I don't think it's I don't know. I think on a reread, I think it's still come out really well. I think it's, and it's made the shortlist for a reason. Obviously the judges like it. That's the one where I'd be quite surprised it won over something like Crooked Plough or Not a River or Kairos, which I think have a little more bite to them potentially. Yeah, so we shall see. Famous last words. I feel like I've just sort of I'm going to say this and have it entirely wrong. Mark, thank you in the comments. I feel like they're fairly quick with it, because typically they do the live stream to kind of coincide with the ceremony. I think the live stream starts at 5 minutes before. So I think now on their side, I'm just going to play it in the background. I think now is the bit where they do all the background of sort of, here's us talking about all the books that were shortlisted. And then I think at 9:30 or just after, they do the announcement. Again, this might just be me then having to fill time for an hour while the other stuff goes on. Go and take a break, go and have a nap. But yeah, we shall see. Rudy, you say about they're all need to go to bed early. It's not even. It's just about to turn 9:30 in the UK, and part of me was just like, oh God, why did I decide to do a live stream for this? Couldn't I have just done a video afterwards? I'm really tired. So I may be even less cogent than normal. But what I love is watching the chat for the official live stream, where somebody has just spammed Kairos like 14 times. Live streams are wild for this kind of thing. But I am really intrigued to see what happens. I think regardless, without sounding like a Miss Universe answer, regardless, the joy of a prize like this is that you are exposed to all these other books and authors. So, Jenny Erpenbeck is an author whose books I've been meaning to read for a while. I think, is it Go Went Gone? Is a book that people kept on telling me to read, which I've not yet done. And so look, the prize has sort of has sort of encouraged me into reading Kairos. And then now I will now I will probably go and read other stuff by her. And I think that's the real joy of particularly the International Booker, actually, is sort of really opening, really exposing you to a lot of authors, often from countries where their work is much less translated into English, or particularly to a British market. So I don't know, I'm just waving Kairos around now. So yeah, things like that are the kinds of benefits of this. So I feel fairly hopeful either way. It is I think I'm with what's his face, one of the former book, Julian Barnes, who once described the Booker as posh bingo, which I really like. And I think in some ways this is peak posh bingo, where we just get to kind of watch as some people decide that they like a book and then give the prize to a book, and all is well. But yes, we shall see. Tam, did you plan a song and dance to fill in the time? Unfortunately not. So if I do have to fill time, you will see an unplanned song and dance, which is somehow worse. Actually, maybe with some planning, it depends how much planning I would have had. Give me a few days, might be decent. Give me 5 minutes to prepare, terrible. So we'll see. But there we go. Who are people rooting for? I've seen a few people kind of earlier on. I think Kairos and Crooked Plough seem to be sort of two of the big ones, as well as Not a River as well. I think these genuinely are two of the better books, as is Crooked Plough. I think for me, there's something about I think we're very, very close to a winner being announced, but Kairos, I think, just is really literally clever and thoughtful. I think Not a River is just a really genius way of approaching narrative and thinking about various things. And I think Crooked Plough just does some really inventive things with narrative. But now we are at the time. In theory, this should come any second. I'm now you get to watch live as I look at another screen to try and work out the winner. Okay, so the kind of official bit on the channel seems to be moving down. Okay, now it's got a countdown now of 10 minutes. We have 10 minutes, T minus 10 minutes, till we have a winner, apparently. Who knows? Like watching Gogglebox. I still never actually watched an episode of Gogglebox. I get the vague idea. I would be terrible on it. But anyway, Rudy, I like that comment. Yeah, so sometimes I feel like they choose books no one gets just to F with critics. Sometimes it can feel like that. There is something really interesting in the way that you pick a jury. I suppose they are a jury, right? A set of judges for a literary prize, because you want 5 people whose tastes could overlap on some things, but also would bring new things to the table, right? Like you don't want 5 people who all, I don't know, for example, all love sci-fi books exclusively, and they're judging a non-sci-fi prize. Like that would tilt things in a strange way. But you also don't want like you don't want 5 people whose tastes are so different from each other that they never choose a winner, and it's just, you know, war constantly. And there have been some Booker years where the long list has made such little sense altogether as a collective that you kind of think that each judge basically had 2 of their own books and 3 that they vaguely agreed on as a whole, you know. It has felt like that with some years. So let's see how this ends up going. I think with a set of, and so yes, where I was going with that, I guess, is that sometimes judges, particularly as these are often people who are sort of very much within the literary world, sometimes the decisions can be really out of step with the general public. Because, for example, if you are somebody who has, you know, as part of your work, has consistently read a lot of one author, or is very well versed in, I don't know, Latin American mythology, that can sometimes mean that there's something where you appreciate a book in a certain way and actually the general public probably don't, or maybe the general public has less of an appetite for a very experimental book. And so it can sort of be interesting for that. The Testaments, as Ian points out, is a very good example of this. It's interesting when you read the interviews that some of the judges gave around that year. So the Testaments had not yet been released, at least when the long list and maybe shortlist was announced. And the interviews with some of the judges after the Testaments one was one of the joint winners, was that there was this whole mythos around it because it was so exclusive, because the embargo meant that the only way the judges could read the book was to all go to the head offices of this of the publisher and be given a few hours to sit and read the book. And in many ways, that's a very different reading experience from, I don't know, I've got 140 books to read. I'm going to read some of them on the train. I'm going to read some of them at home on my sofa. I'm going to, you know, juggle my reading of everything else. When you've got very specific focus time and you're in a different space, to some degree that elevates that book. And so it still surprises me that the Testaments was one of the winners, because I don't think it's that good. And I say this as someone who adores Margaret Atwood's work, but for me, the Testaments, yeah, not the best. And Rudy, yeah, thank you. Exactly, a really great point. So Treacle Walker, small things like these, the trees, some of the, And I think, if I'm right, that same year also had the Elizabeth Strout book as well. And it's one of those things where I think they're all very, very good books in their own right, but it is a weird list when you put them all side by side. And in some ways really good, right? It's not 13 or 6 big literary books all at once. It's, it's a bit of a range. But at the same time, it's kind of really interesting to see those books all side by side and be like, somebody sort of sat and were like, yeah, these these are the 6 books. And yes, Owen, hello Owen. The year that could have been, it could have had Plec. Oh, beautiful, beautiful Plec. Our child, who we still think of regularly. But yeah, anyway, going off on a massive tangent there. I think what I'm trying to say is judges and judging for this kind of thing can be so interesting, because again, essentially you've got 5 people who have to some degree spent 6 months reading 140 books, or I think in the International Book Census, I think it's slightly fewer. I think it's around 90 or 100, but still reading a lot of books back to back and kind of picking winners from it, and then rereading the long list to choose a shortlist, and then rereading that shortlist to choose a winner. So whichever book wins tonight, well, all of the shortlists tonight will have been read 3 times by the judges. In theory, technically they're meant to. I'm sure they do. I'm not casting aspersions on the judges or anything here. But what I do think then is really interesting is how certain books from this list stack up better, I think, when they're reread. It's actually, again, why I think particularly Kairos and Crooked Plough stand a good chance, because the nature of these books is that the kind of the narrative flow changes how we perceive other parts of the book. As in, without spoiling anything, the ending of Kairos, I think, opens new ideas for how we might read earlier parts of this book. I think Crooked Plough, being able to see how the book ends, really changes how you see those opening scenes, or can change how you see those opening scenes that are packed with so much brutality. And actually, even a much shorter book like Not a River, the sheer simplicity or kind of deceptive simplicity of this book, I think, really works in its favor. That when you go back and sort of think about the book afterwards, you realize sort of how many bits of sort of myth or world building or prophecy are kind of hiding on every page. And it's actually why I think a book like The Details, as much as I like the book, I think rereads maybe don't do the same. And again, I say this not having reread it, but I think a book like that, or What I'd Rather Not Think About, I think they're a little bit more straightforward plot wise. And that's not to say they're bad. I think there's a little bit more linear in a way that I think means that the ending is a sort of payoff in itself, and you don't necessarily need to then go back and reflect differently on the rest of the book. And the same for Marta 210, I think, where I don't think kind of the end isn't a big twist or a big break in something that I think will change how you read the early part of the book. And it doesn't all have to be about that, but I think that can be a component. It's why I'm actually still a little bit surprised to some degree that The Bee Sting didn't win last year, because I think the ending of that book reshapes how you then view parts of the earlier bit of the book, because it's a book that constantly eludes you and sort of keeps on moving away from you. So there we go. I think what we're also going to just see the comment. I hope Audrey McGee is writing a new book. Just remember The Colony. Yes, The Colony was so good. I'm still gutted that wasn't shortlisted or a winner that year. I was so convinced it was going to be either one of those. Okay, apparently just under a minute left. Dua Lipa is talking. And Mark, yes, I'm a little bit worried that the countdown will just lead to another countdown. Do you know that it's like that moment? Do you know when you're at a gig and during the gig, you'll be like, a song kind of ends and it's just quiet for that little moment. You're like, oh my God, they're going to perform now. And then they don't. And you're like, oh, another song started. And you can kind of hear everyone in the audience kind of go, because it's already like 10:15. So yeah, there we go. Yeah, Prophet Song, I think actually, yeah, and to your comment, Lyra, there, I think Prophet Song, although it wasn't my pick for the winner, I see why, and I think it is a book where sort of multiple rereadings change things. Okay, right, Dua Lipa is fading to black. We have apparently just a couple of minutes, or a couple of seconds rather. Okay, let's see what this live stream is doing now. Is it going to be a full announcement? It's Jack Edwards. I see you, Jack Edwards. Are we sponsored by Valentino in this? What's going on in this this thing here? Let's see. Okay. We now have a dramatic. This is how you know something's happening when you get a dramatic landscape that focuses in on London. Okay, I see people talking. I see networking. Some people hugging. Let's keep going through this live stream. Okay, we're getting little flashes of these 6 books again, and let's see. Okay, so maybe what we were saying about how we thought that it might be an announcement of a winner straight away after it. Maybe not. Maybe that countdown was just a countdown to other things. So we're back talking to the authors, hearing from the authors about their books. I will say, as much as I'm joking about kind of it taking a while to get to the actual winner, one thing I do really respect with a prize like this is that they actually do really champion the books, in the sense of the whole night is about those books. And obviously most prizes do to some degree, but they really seem to invest a lot into having actors to read out the books, having interviews with the authors and translators to talk about the books, all of that kind of things, those kind of things. And so I think it's really, it's interesting. I think it's sort of, those books do really feel like by the end they've been championed. To talk you through all of this, we are now, from what I can see on my little phone, is now Jack interviewing the previous year's winners. So Georgy Gospodinov and his translator, whose name I've entirely just forgotten off the top of my head here. I will find them a little bit later. With Time Shelter, which I still think was a very, very solid winner. It was one of my books of last year, my favorite books of last year. I think it's a really clever, beautiful book in terms of the way it talks about time, the way it talks about sort of memory and politics and kind of national identity. And so it's really exciting to see that all come kind of together. I really think it's a very solid book, and I think the last few winners, especially for the International Booker, have been really quite special. I still have a really special place in my heart for Tomb of Sand, which I think is just such a staggering piece of literature. And so it's good to see that there have been some solid winners, which gives me hope for tonight. I'm seeing your comment there, Lyra, about the Pulitzer Prize winner. Yeah, I know not very, very little about the book, apart from seeing Eric Carl Anderson over at Lonesome Reader sort of put out a video, because I don't think he was particularly happy about the winner. And is this the winner? No. Okay, we're back to talking about Kairos. I had a brief moment. My phone just showed Kairos just on screen. I thought we had our winner. Alas not. But I think there's something really where was I going? Yeah, the Pulitzer Prize winner, where I think it seemed like a fairly controversial one for a lot of people. It's a book I had not heard of at all. I think this is the interesting thing with the Pulitzer. They kind of just announce, like, here were the 3 books that were in contention. Basically, here were the 3 books that were in the shortlist, and here's the winner. And it's just sort of bam, done. No lead up, no anything. And so sometimes those decisions can feel not necessarily random, but kind of you don't really have the same build up of kind of reading 6 books in conversation with each other and kind of understanding which one might have risen to the top. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. Thank you, Mark. I don't know how my random babbling is keeping you up, but there we go. If it works, it works. And yeah, Ian, absolutely. It's the kind of, some prizes definitely do the whole thing of, the shortlist is kind of where it's at, and these are all winners and blah blah blah. And I really like the way the Republic of Consciousness prize does it, because their ethos is very much that it was just one book of six that got, of five, I think their shortlist is, that kind of edged above the others. So they typically just give a prize to all of the shortlist, and then the winner, the only thing that the winner wins is the recognition. They don't get a special prize for having won. It's just they get the name of it. Which I think is a much fairer way. I think it's a wider conversation, but book prizes in general, I think there's a wider conversation there about the way that it seems to sort of, by putting one book above another, it does seem to suggest that there is a hierarchy, is not the right word, but a kind of this is the book to read, and these other books, they're fine, but they're not as good as this one. Whereas actually, I think a model that's a bit nicer is the Republic of Consciousness one of, hey, look, here are 10 great books. One of these will eventually emerge as a winner, but the prizes are the same for everyone. The winner is just sort of the one we, as a group of 5 people, like slightly more than the others. So that's kind of where it's often at. Apologies as I just sip now through this live stream. I'm very aware my tea is getting cold, partly because I think I imagined that we'd be done by now. But yeah, Ian, no, I agree. It's so it's interesting with so Eric is a good friend, and I care about him deeply, and it's really interesting to see him rant about something because it happens so rarely, and I think that is something where sometimes that book kind of just gets you. I've only had a very few. I've only ranted a very few times about books, and that's normally where it's more, I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed, where the book has sort of set me up to think it's going to do something and then it doesn't deliver, and that is worse. Or in the case of something like The Testaments, where it wins and you're like, why? And again, this is not, no disservice to Margaret Atwood. I think actually rejecting the Testaments as a winner is a better way of honouring Margaret Atwood, because it's basically acknowledging that her other work has been significantly better. At one point I will get over that, but apparently now is not the time. So here we go. Right. Okay. We now have a focused in shot of 6 books again. We might have, and we have Dua Lipa, and we have some. Oh, we've got Bernie. So Bernie, Bernie Lombardi, who's an bookstagrammer. Oh my God! Look at him just casually being interviewed here. This is fun. This feels like a very strange meeting of worlds. It's in sort of following someone like Bernie online and then just seeing him just appear on a Booker live stream. That's fun. Oh, that's lovely. I am wondering now, as this is ticking along, whether 10 o'clock is going to be the official, UK time, is going to be the official winner announcement. Just because if we're doing interviews with bookstagrammers, sort of 10 to, typically you kind of want the big fanfare thing just before the winner, right? Whereas the bookstagrammers is like a nice thing, but they tend to go for like the big juicy, here's someone on stage giving a speech that's about to lead into the winner kind of thing. So let's see how we go. And yeah, Tam, I definitely agree. I think so to Tam's comment, I appreciate the prizes with lists for introduce me to books I wouldn't have heard of otherwise. I tend not to stick to reading just the winner. The lists take me down a wonderful path of backlists. Yeah, I 100% agree. I think so often as well, for me, my favorite books were not the ones that win. Or, even if I did really love the winner, I loved something else just as much or whatever. If you, even so with the women's prize this year, I already really loved Soldier Sailor and The Wren, but it's introduced me to Brotherless Night, which I'm reading at the moment and really enjoying. It's sort of, it just exposes you to all these other books that I think are so interesting. And it's always the tension, right? Because so many book prizes, I mean, in some ways they can't win, right? If you have a really quote unquote obvious shortlist, where the shortlist is I don't know, the shortlist is 6 books that have basically been the big bestsellers of the year, then it can feel a bit like well, I've not really discovered anything new. But equally, if it's a lot more unknown, the conversation is then very much, well, how dare they? So I'm just keeping an eye on the live stream. Some focusing on people having a nice dinner, but if it's a bit more unusual, then you kind of get almost the Demon Copperhead effect of like, well, where's Demon Copperhead? If Demon Copperhead's not here, is this even a legitimate shortlist? Because this is so many people's book of the year. And so that's kind of the thing where I think it gets quite interesting is what's that balance between something brand new and exposing you to something exciting and having big hitters, I think. And yeah, definitely, I think, as Lyra is saying there, we can't all like the same book, so the prize lists are an excellent source to read through. And that's why I quite like it when you've got a couple of weird ones on the list, because often those are the books that have really stuck with me, because it's very much you like them or you hate them. Perhaps a Eurovision style production is the way to go for next year's International Booker. I would love this. As a big Eurovision fan, I would love the idea of just sort of the judges coming in with their scores and it being like, our 12 points go to Kairos, you know, this sort of big elaborate thing, a live reading on stage, hopefully some kind of Eastern European folk instrument. I am here for all of it. I would really love this. Also, to Mark's comment there about bookstagrammers, that is a good point. I think there were royal family members involved. I think maybe the royal family do the Anglophone Booker and not the international Booker. So we'll probably see Camilla again later in the year. And Mark's point, please not Eurovision style, a German book would never win then. Yeah, and likewise, the UK would not do particularly well in the Anglophone Booker. It's not the case. And yes, D Jones talking about reading Go Went Gone because of loving Kairos so much. And that's the thing. So, I mean, obviously, we'll talk about it depending. We'll have the winner fairly soon. The thing I think is really clever about Kairos is, although I didn't always enjoy the reading experience as such, because it's quite tricky and dense and challenging in some ways, I also think that there's something really powerful about the way that it intentionally goes for difficult conversations. Kairos is a book where, you know, she spends a lot of the book having, you know, you're watching two people have a breakup from a relationship, and she's sort of having these big philosophical discussions with herself about what went wrong and all of those sorts of things. So I kind of love that element of it, and I think that's what's going to be really interesting about it if it does win. Is it's a almost more nakedly literary book than anything else on the list. They're all very literary in some capacity. Kairos feels like the one. I mean, and I don't mean this as an insult, Kairos is the one that feels most to me like a prize book in the sense that it's so kind of philosophical and thoughtful. Although I will say, again, coming back to the two other favourites, Not a River and Crooked Plough, I think are both just such expansive ways of approaching storytelling, and are so steeped in myth and place and so many other things that I think they're just fantastic. And yes, The Lives of Others, I think is such a fantastic film. I haven't watched it since I first watched it, which I think was when it came out, but it is just an absolutely stunning piece of film. Yeah, we shall see. So live stream wise, thank you, Rudy. I'm still chugging this very, very big tea. It's not caffeinated, but apparently I might need one. So I'm currently watching Jack walk backstage as he's sort of trying to get towards the stage. I think we may have a winner imminently. And I mean, in fairness, I have been saying that for about 20 minutes. Let's see how this goes. Is the winner going to be announced via a hidden track on Dua Lipa's album? Stay tuned. Let's find out. Phil, has Rachel Cusk been banned from all future Booker Prize competitions? And if not, should she be? Did she do something bad? Have I missed something? Or is it just for the kind of the nature of the book itself? I had mixed feelings about Rachel Cusk's book when it was longlisted, but I did think overall it was pretty good. But yeah, I would not be surprised to see Cusk. At least she's got a new book, Parade, coming out this year, so I would not be surprised. So very well done, Phil. No second chance for her. The screen is now showing something. The screen is very weird because it's just looking out over the dinner tables, and then onto a screen. I think is still finishing the Crooked Plough reading. So who knows? Because right now we're kind of just watching people have a nice posh dinner. So, let's see. I would love to go to a ceremony one of these years. It would be really good fun. But I also think I'd find it intimidating. I went to a Booker Shortlist event last year or the year before, a couple of years ago, the year that O. William and all those were shortlisted. And it was very strange because at one point I saw Marlon James and was just like, that's Marlon James. Okay, I think we may have a winner. People are coming onto a stage. Okay. If you're not watching the live stream, I'm giving you vague descriptions of what is happening with the sound off. So some people are getting onto a stage. We have somebody delivering a speech. I don't actually know who they are, unfortunately. I feel very bad that I don't know who they are, but they are giving a speech. So I think it is imminent. Okay, and now Eleanor Wachtel, one of the judges, the chair of the judges, is coming to the stage, which means very, very imminently going to have our winner. Let's see at least from the two that I've got physically here. Let's see what we've got. Place any last bets here. It's kind of weird to do this without the sound because I'm just sort of watching someone deliver a speech and just sort of trying to see if I can lip read. It will come on screen when it happens. Let's see. I'm just loving the comments on the live stream. It's just people spamming either the Argentine or Brazilian flag, which is great. So let's see. Okay, thank you, Roz. She's just thanking people right now, so that's all good. Do we have a winner? Looks like the long list is just the short list is being shown on the screen. Okay, let's do this. My cat has decided this is the time to come and attack my chair. This is wonderful. Thank you, Cindy. Sure. Phil's comment. It's a six-way tie. Can you imagine a six-way tie? How wonderful and awful would that be at the same time? I'd love to see them all on stage trying to sort of just nudge each other out the way to give their speech and be like, oh, I'm so thankful. I'm really happy. Let's see. Okay, I feel like we're getting there. We are having a few flags spammed. Yeah, absolutely would set the libraries off. Could you imagine seeing all these libraries just being like, oh, for God's sake, right, we've got to change all of our wall displays. We've got these 6 books that all won. And then, I mean, luckily it's not like Eurovision where it's then who's hosting the year after, because that would be a nightmare. So suspenseful, which is mostly me just sort of staring at my phone being like, what on earth is going on? Let's see. So apparently that was Natalie Diaz. I realized who was giving that speech earlier because I haven't got the sound on. I did not know who that was. But her, is it Post-Colonial Love Poem? I think her collection is called, is incredible. So let's see. They really have left it to be at 0:00, haven't they? Let's see who the winner is. Watch it somehow still be Demon Copperhead. Just like, yeah, come on, we decided. She won enough things last year. We thought she still didn't have a Booker to her name, so let's give her the international. Okay. I keep on thinking that it's being spoiled in the comments by people sort of posting flags, and I just realized it's just some very, very proud Argentinian and Brazilian folk, and I love it. I think every Argentinian person I've met has just been so like gung-ho about supporting Argentina in the most wonderful way, as in sort of like, oh yeah, you see that dog from that village? That dog is from Argentina. I will support them. I love it. But I mean, also Not a River is entirely worth it as a prize winner. So we shall see. I really want to read Lacuna. Yeah, I think on the. Okay, Okay, I thought we had a winner for a second. Do we? Do we not? Helena Factal is really getting every moment out of the speech, isn't she? She's just like, no. I didn't judge a book prize for, act as the chair of judges for a book prize for 6 months to not have my sort of 15 minutes. I say this all with love. I'm sure she's well within her rights to do this. I just love that it's always more difficult when there's the suspense of like, okay, we're going to get the winner any time now. The women's prize is especially tricky for this, where they spend 4 hours. Okay, some curtains are falling down. It is Kairos. We have our winner. And I've just spilt my tea. There we go. So Kairos is our winner for 2024. Yes, it only took us a very long live stream to get there. Oh, well, look at this. It's so lovely watching on stage, on the kind of stream, just them coming up to kind of celebrate. This is a very, very well-deserved winner, I think. Like I was saying earlier, I think the way this book almost demands to be reread is a real benefit for this book winning a prize, because on a third reading, I mean, I say this, I've read it once, but I would definitely imagine on a third reading, this book just hits in a really different way, because the book really builds, I think. So those of you who have not read it, it focuses particularly on East Germany and sort of East German politics to some degree, combined with wider Germany. But the breakdown in a relationship between a younger woman and an older man, and particularly how their relationship is kind of complicated by the politics going on around them. So the politics is kind of this background character, and I think that's so interesting for the way this book does it. And again, like I said, it's quite dense, it's quite challenging at times, but there's something about when you get to the end part of this book where I think it really works and it really lands. And this is lovely. Look at them on stage being all happy. People in the comments, how am I correct? This never happens. Time Shelter I vaguely thought could win, and Tomb of Sand I was rooting for but didn't know. So maybe I'm doing all right, actually. I've just been very lucky that books I've really enjoyed have won the last few times. Here we go. Kairos is our winner. Correct in the way a lottery winner is correct. In fairness, I basically said half the list were my favorites, and so I was had about a 50% chance. But honestly, I think in terms of a book that stands up to multiple readings in a very prize-like way, I think this is a very deserving, a very interesting winner. I'm a little bit sad for Cricket Plough and Not a River, because I think they are both such, which I've now spilt tea on. I think they're both such exquisite books as well. But I think Kairos, I totally see how that came to happen. I'm really intrigued to read more of her work. Like a few of us have been sort of saying, because I think there's so much about the way she writes this. And actually, interestingly, a lot of German people have sort of said, hey, look, you liked this. This is not even her best book. So I think there's a lot to enjoy there. I think what's also really interesting looking at the live stream, the Booker official one, is that we're watching Jenny on stage speaking and her translator also on stage. And I think there's something really special about that. Because it is obviously a very much a two-way conversation. I can read some German. I would not be able to pass a whole book like Kairos in German because it's so dense and a lot of the language would be far above my level. But it's interesting that, you know, a book like this can get the wider readership, particularly a book that is in many ways very local. It's very much about East Germany and wider German life. It, in theory, is a book that doesn't always need to translate. It might not always be easy to translate because of the historical and political context. But I think the fact that this was still so readable and engaging is sort of testament to Michael Hoffman's translation there as well. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. Maybe I'm just used to book prizes not going my way. I apparently have very strong feelings. Mex Libris, they read, she said they read 149 books this year. Crikey. Like, wow. So 149 is a lot. I mean, granted, some of them are much shorter. 149 books is a lot. Like, I have been reading a lot of books this year, and a lot of them have been audiobooks. And even then, I'm above 149, but that was with a lot of reading and audio and like reading things for joy and what have you. 149 books where you might not like all of them and where you have to make decisions on them. And yeah, like Rudy says, some of us have jobs, some of us have lives. I would love to be a booker or any prize judge for that, but I also know that I'd have to be very, very tactical with annual leave because I think you very much have to give your life over, kind of like marathon training. You have to give your life over. And interesting, Mark, thank you. Sort of Mark read it in German and loved it. Erpenbeck is very underrated in Germany. That's really interesting. I wouldn't have thought that, actually. Part of me thought that Jenny Erpenbeck might be a really German author in the sense of sort of, you know, how widely known is she outside of that? But that's really interesting to know. I think if nothing else, a lot of the other books, particularly Crooked Plough and Not a River, I think have found their tribes of, you know, people who have fallen in love with them this year. And I think that's the really special and beautiful thing. It's also Granta, I think. Did they have, who was the winner last year from publisher-wise? I don't think it was Granta as well, but there we go. This is good. Well, we have a winner. How are people feeling about? I don't know. I'm just holding Kairos. I'm just sort of waving it around. Rudy, you're about to start reading the Books of Jacob in Polish. Oh wow, good luck. I will say, Books of Jacob broke me in English, and it got to a point where I was reading it and I just felt stupid. And there's probably more me than the book, but there we go. I think Time Shelter is Weidenfeld. That sounds about right. I think it was a smaller or kind of less known publisher. But we have a winner. As a couple of people have pointed out in the comments of the live stream, we have had a couple, 2 European authors in a row. But that's not, in the grand scheme of things, 2 in a row is not massive, particularly as the winner before is an Indian author. But it's interesting to see, because obviously there is a wider point to be made about the fact that most of the translated fiction that we as, readers in the UK, in my case, get to read often are European, partly because Europe's right there, but also because of the kind of finances associated with translation, and that is often less afforded to other parts of the world, particularly global south. But I still think a fantastic book and very, very good winner. Like TK Talks Books says there, deeply respect the Erpenbeck book, but I'm a Selva Almada fangirl. And if I hadn't just spilled tea all over this book, I'd be probably showing it slightly better. But also, what a fantastic book. If you haven't read it, give it a go. If this sounds like your kind of thing, do that for all of the shortlists. Just give them a go if they feel like your thing. If they don't work for you, fine. Nobody nobody dies, but just give them a little look. And Ian, you're seeing Silva Almada at Hay Festival next week. I again always miss Hay Festival. I always forget when it is. But here we go. We have a winner. I will let everybody go back to their nice evenings where it's not just a barrage of me talking at you for an hour, and also so I can go to bed. But we have a winner. I think a fantastic winner. I think a winner that makes a lot of sense in given the prize and the quality of the translation, as far as I understand. I haven't read it in the German. But also, yeah, I really highly urge you to go and check out all the rest of the shortlist if you think there'd be a value to you. Check out some of the long list. I think there's some interesting books on the long list as well. I think is it White Nights, the one from the small independent publisher, is a book that I'd have loved to have seen on the shortlist, not only for the shortlist for the publisher themselves, but also because I think that was such a fascinating book, and just really deserved a bit of extra love. But regardless, well done to Jenny Erpenbeck and to Michael Hoffman. I've got a full video where I talk about a little plug for myself here. Full video where I talk about Kairos and what I really enjoyed about it. But yeah, have a lovely evening, everybody, or day, or whatever time you're at. Thank you for joining me for an hour of me just babbling at you. What is new? Daphne, thank you so much. That's incredibly kind of you. Thank you. Thank you. That genuinely did not actually think that was a possible thing that you could do on this. So even lovelier. Thank you, Daphne. That's very, very, very kind of you. And genuinely, I think it's the first one I've ever had. So thank you. Have a wonderful evening, you lovely people. Thank you for joining me to talk books and to just generally nerd out about wonderful literature. Really, the true winner tonight, apart from Jenny Erpenbeck and Michael Hoffman and her publisher, is literature. That's very cheesy, but let's go for it. Translated fiction is often some of the most exciting and interesting stuff out there. Check it out. Read some good stuff. Please do also recommend things that you think are really interesting and good as well. And have a wonderful time. Speak to you all soon. Gute Nacht. Guten Abend, as a few people are there sort of saying. Schlaf gut. And speak to you all soon. Bye-bye. And this is also now where I fiddle around trying to end the stream with the button and realise that it takes just a second longer than I think. So please bear with me as I just babble through this next little bit. Just ending the stream. Take care and lovely seeing you all. Bye-bye.